So we got some new Whizbang's workshop cards to talk about this time around. Warrior stuff. We got to do legendary, as you can see behind me. I'm still sick, so I can barely talk, and frankly, can barely hear right now. My head's just full of gunk. So please bear with me if I say something loopy or zone out for a little bit. But this is Botface, a new 9-mana 3/9 mech with Taunt. And after this takes damage, you get 2 random minis. So quite a few things happening here, right? Number one, we got mech. We've already seen some big mech stuff introduced in Warrior here. I'll pull it up real quick just in case you forgot, because we did see the Inventor Boom already revealed earlier in the season. Resurrect 2 friendly mechs that cost 5 or more. They attack random enemies. This is obviously a mech that costs 5 or more, and attacking a random minion, for instance, with this could get you some nice stuff back with these minis. And then we've also got Taunt here, and we're going to talk about some Taunt synergies being revisited once again for Warrior in this expansion. So this has kind of got a couple different angles that it could be considered a relevant piece of the puzzle. Now, as far as the minis themselves, getting minis is going to be pretty good, I would guess. Of course, it doesn't have an immediate impact. They're just getting added to your hand. So, you know, you're just plopping this down and hoping these stats are enough, or maybe cheating this into play or whatever, and hoping these taunt stats are enough. But then you're kind of setting up for later with a handful of potentially like 2, 4, even more minis that allow you to create a crazy swing turn. And if you think about it, right, all of these minis so far, even if the front half of the miniaturized card hasn't felt good, the 1 mana mini itself almost always is doing something really cool for 1 mana. And there are some examples, of course, of insane minis, like we saw with the factory assembly bot, right? If you get a 1 mana factory assembly bot that's summoning you a 6/7 that can attack stuff, that's an insane mini. You could actually just get 2 of these, and that would be absolutely monstrous. But there are a lot of good mini results, basically. So your next turn is going to get kind of juiced up, even if you just play a couple minis, right, alongside a normal play. That's probably going to add a ton of efficiency. And then there is the potential for lots of extra value to be generated here too, because you're just getting like 4+ extra cards sometimes here off the bot face, sometimes even more, right? You could get an entire handful of minis, which could be kind of insane. So I don't know, that's interesting, right? It's a pretty passive card in a lot of ways. It's sort of delayed in its payoff. It's not the biggest, scariest thing in its own right, but it does pass back a lot of value, and it does have a lot of potential synergy angles as well. And we're going to talk about some ways that this could maybe get cheated into play too. Speaking of, this is Chemical Spill, a new 5-mana spell. Summon the highest cost minion from your hand, and then deal 5 damage to it. So there you go, right? Summon your bot face on turn 5. It's still a 3/4 taunt, which clearly not good, right? But on turn 5, you could probably get away with a 3/4 taunt that you're going to resurrect with your Inventor Boom, for instance, later. So, you know, it's enough of a speed bump to slow down the opponent, and then you hope to recover some of that tempo back on 6 with some really efficient mini plays alongside whatever else you're going to do. So just using this as a way to cheat something big into play, sometimes benefiting from that 5 damage. Sometimes that's just, of course, going to feel like an absolute downside. There are some risks as well, because, of course, if like you're relying on the bot face to be your highest cost card, if that's not in hand, this could just like summon something that it kills. You know, we looked at like Inventor Boom, for instance. You wouldn't want to summon that at 8 mana, because that's a 7/7 that just gets damaged and doesn't have a battle cry. It's a 7/2 after it takes the damage, of course. So there's like some risks here inherent to this, but we had enough big things in your deck, like your bot face and a few other perhaps complementary pieces. You can definitely see this being a great way to cheat out those monster threats early. And sometimes this could even be like a combo enabler. I was thinking about like the old Thaddeus. I mean, Thaddeus right now is not relevant. He's rotating, right? But if you think about like the old version of Thaddeus, this would be insane. You don't care if your Thaddeus takes 5 damage. Who cares? It's going to survive the 5 damage, and then you've just cheated a Thaddeus into play on turn 5, and you're like over the moon happy, right? That's just an insane result. So cards like that could exist in any given meta, some kind of combo enabler, some kind of cheat card like that, could be absolutely nuts for Chemical Spill as well. So we've got some built-in stuff we can already see, and the potential on this is always kind of scary. So next up, we got Testing Dummy here, which is another piece of the kind of taunt and mech puzzle that's being assembled here. Another cool body for Dr. Boom, potentially, because this is a 6-mana 4/8 mech with Taunt and Death Rattle. Deal 8 damage randomly split among all enemies. That is that Astalor style effect that can hit minions, of course, or can also of course, go face. And this is a pretty big body as well. We've actually had quite a few of these, like 4/8 taunts at 6 mana in the past in Hearthstone. It's enough at 8 health there that the opponent often has to like kind of trade small stuff into it, send in some rush minions or whatever. And when they do that, right, they're probably leaving themselves without much board behind, so that this 8 damage has oftentimes maybe the ability to just go all face, and this just chunks 8 to face. Or if they have some value trades, like trading at a 5/5 or whatever, and then something else small, right, that 5/5's left with 1 health kind of gets cleaned up here by this death rattle. So this does have that nice ability to kind of become a threat with that face damage, especially if you're like resummoning these with the Inventor Boom, like we talked about, that's going to attack random enemies. Those death rattles are going to go off. You've also got boom bots we talked about in the mix as well in this set. So all of this like crazy random damage just starts stacking up and whittling down the opponent over the course of the game, whether that's just through efficiency of removing minions on board or just chipping away at that face health so that eventually they kind of fall over dead to all these stacking little pings and bombs going off in their face, which is pretty cool. So you can definitely see a critical mass of that happening once that all gets moving in the mid game. It's just like, oh my god, there's so many just little damage pings going off. I'm just dying here. I'm down to 8 health and nothing happened, right? And it could be pretty efficient and effective in that way. We're also going to take a look here at some death rattle synergies as well with the boom wrench. This is going to allow you to trigger a death rattle on a mech, which that's insane when it's 8 damage potentially. There's also this, which allows you to summon a copy of a mech, and then it's going to die, of course, again, activating any death rattles in that instance. So you get like a 3-mana copy of your testing dummy that's attacking something, which could be face, right? Deal 4 to face, and then another 8 to face. It's like insane amounts of damage all coming together in this package. So I don't know, man, this becomes a really nice threatening death rattle in that instance. So speaking of those cards, let's talk about Wreck 'em and Deck 'em. This is a new 3-mana spell. Choose a friendly mech, summon a copy of it that attacks a random enemy and then dies. So clearly here trying to play off some of the death rattle stuff. And I'll pull up this other mech in case you've forgotten the fireworker here. I didn't remember his name. He's also got that death rattle summon 2 1/1 boom bots, right? So this, for instance, could be another great guy to summon a copy of, like attack a random enemy, clear up a minion on your opponent's side, swing face for 5 off the fireworker, and then get a couple boom bots that are also going to start chipping away that damage like we talked about, right? So just very efficient, right? Anytime something sticks or you're able to weave this together, even, with a 5-mana card, it doesn't have to be a home run. This is still potentially a lot of value. You can use it to just kind of clean up minions on board or just push for that little bit of extra reach and lethality. That to me seems like it's going to be worth it for 3. This is one of those cards, though, that can kind of get stuck in hand sometimes if you're not playing from ahead, if your opponent's cleaning up all your little boards. You might feel like, oh, man, the only thing I can really use this on is like a boom bot or something, and I'm not as excited about copying a boom bot. It may not be a bad play sometimes, but definitely wouldn't feel like the payoff. So this is a card, in other words, that might need to be played later in the game, coming down at the same time with another card, like, your 6-mana play and your 3-mana play together. That's 9 mana, right? That's stretching pretty late into a game for this sort of thing. So I do wonder if this could feel clunky or stuck or awkward, and if you have to be ahead to make this one feel really worth it to get it on the right sorts of targets as early as you need. So that could be the risk for this card. Moving on to the boom wrench, we got mini on a weapon, which is super cool. 4-mana 3/2 miniaturized death rattle. Trigger the death rattle of a random friendly mech. As we talked about, we got some cool death rattles here with some of these mechs, which is really nice. So you can load this up early and then play your testing dummy or your fireworker, right, on those turns, and get yourself some boom bots, get yourself that 8 damage, which is really nice. And then the cool thing with the mini aspect of this is that because you're getting that mini version of the weapon immediately, you can actually activate the death rattle by playing the mini version over the top of it. You don't even have to attack through your durability. You just know you're guaranteed to have a weapon in hand to activate this card's death rattle, which triggers the death rattle. Then you get attack with the mini version, which only has that 1 durability, and you get the death rattle of the weapon again. So basically, if you got a testing dummy on board, you play the boom wrench, you get the mini version of the boom wrench, you equip it, death rattle goes off, boom, 8 damage to face, let's say, potentially, right? And then you attack with your boom wrench, boom, another 8 damage to face off your testing dummy. So because you have that flexibility to overwrite the weapon and activate that death rattle, thanks to the mini always being in hand, It gives you some potential spikiness on this, right? You can kind of get both of these death rattle triggers all at once, or, you know, just play it normally too, just set it up. You know, it's just a lot of total stuff happening as well, which is nice. So this is kind of, you know, 7 total damage on the weapons themselves, which isn't really all that exciting for 5 mana spent. But when you got these death rattles potentially giving you some real value on your mechs, that's where things become really interesting and exciting. So I don't know, pretty cool little synergy piece, and it's just a really fun, elegant design with these death rattles. This allows you to do some sneaky stuff with this card. So next up here is Quality Assurance. This is just a 2-mana spell that draws you 2 Taunt minions, as we talked about. Even more Taunt synergy pieces here. We saw a couple good taunts already. With your bot face and your testing dummy, boom, you got those in hand. You play your 5-mana spell to cheat out your bot face. You got yourself a little deck coming together. I mean, listen, I don't know if Taunt Warrior is going to be good or not. It's been trying to get there for the longest time, it seems like, for Blizzard. But this is just very efficient card draw, very specific card draw, both of which can be super powerful tools. So even if you're not playing this in a deck that's like about taunts specifically, there's probably decks that are going to have 2 taunts they just like to have, and this is just a super efficient way to draw like 2 or 4 taunts out of your deck, even if you're not a taunt deck. So this card just looks very clean and very good. Next up here, we have the Lab Patron. Oh no, patrons are back, of course, in a nostalgia set. This is a 4-mana 3/3, and it reads, the first time you gain armor each turn, summon another Lab Patron. So importantly, this is only the first time you're gaining armor, not every time you're gaining armor. So this cannot be a board in a single card all at once like those old patrons. But if your opponent can't quite keep up, you might just get like a free 3/3 every single turn off your Lab Patron. Now, that said, I don't think that's likely to happen at all, right? Because it's just so easily dealt with these days. 3/3s aren't hard. Even if there's 2 of them on board, most decks are going to be able to deal with that. I mean, of course, if they don't deal with the first wave, you know, it's you go from 2 to 4 to, you know, 7 basically, because your board is full at that point. But still, most decks are going to be able to deal with this okay. It's just not big enough stats, even by turn 4, to really get there. Now, we are going to see this card, Safety Goggles, which this costs 0 if you don't have any armor. So this is a way, kind of a 1-2 punch, right? You get your Lab Patron, you play the Safety Goggles on turn 4, you get 2 Lab Patrons, you hope that sticks. But again, I just don't think it will. It's just, Hearthstone's too efficient with removal, too reactive and responsive these days for a card like this to make any sense to me. So unfortunately, I just don't think Lab Patron gets there. So finally here we have the Safety Goggles. We talked about 2-mana spell, gain 6 armor, cost 0 if you don't have any armor, which is pretty cool, right? Like a super efficient armor gain if you don't have armor. You know, I might have said in the past, like, this just didn't have the punch necessary to get there, and I don't think it's going to be important to enable patrons or whatever. I don't see that line being good. But we've got Odin in the game, and if Odin's in the game, and if Odin's good in Warrior, this is very efficient armor gain for an Odin Warrior deck. It becomes 2 or even 0 mana, deal 6 damage, and gain 6 armor, which of course is very good in that instance. So yeah, I think there's always a chance for this card to be good. Outside of Odin, it may not be worth it. It may, like we said, may not just pack enough value. Sometimes you need to bundle card draw or something with this, not just raw mana efficiency. But for Odin Warriors, I have to imagine it's pretty good. And there you go. That wraps it up. So let's do some quick reviews. Bot Face is a 3-star card. Chemical Spill is a 3-star card. Testing Dummy is a 4-star card. Wreckham and Deckham is a 3-star card. Boom Wrench is a 4-star card. Quality Assurance is a 4-star card. Lab Patron is a 2-star card. Safety Goggles is a 4-star card. Yeah, there you go, man. Bot Face looks fun, dude. Return of Rot Face, sort of, right? But he's a bot. Get it? It rhymes. I'm loopy, guys. I'm loopy. I hope I get to feeling better soon, man. Talking through these reviews has been hard for whatever reason. So yeah, the Warrior cards, let me know what you think. Good, bad. Excited to play this. Share those thoughts and more down below. But otherwise, stay tuned. I think we got maybe Druid cards tomorrow. Yeah, Druid cards tomorrow. So see you soon. Thank you. And until next time, game on.